So I finally got around to watching every film I felt necessary to watch in order to make this list. Now before we get into it, let's talk about some films that I'd recommend that didn't make it into my top 10. And keep in mind, this is in no particular order. First movie we'll be talking about is Swiss Army Man. Swiss Army Man is the first full-length feature film written and directed by Daniel Schneider, I think that's how you pronounce his name, and Daniel Kwan. That is about a transgender necrophiliac Paul Dano going through a journey that ultimately leads him to love himself and to be content with who he is. It is a wonderful, quirky film with great performances and a beautiful soundtrack. Next we have Don't Breathe. I really liked Don't Breathe. I thought it had a really interesting premise with a really badass antagonist. My only complaint is that you don't really like the kids ever. You're not really rooting for anyone. You kind of just want all of them to go away. But I did enjoy the film a lot. And although you do have to have a suspension of disbelief, it was still very tense and thrilling. Deepwater Horizon is another film I really enjoyed. It was really good at building the tension and establishing the world. We get a good sense of how everything is supposed to work on an oil rig, and are introduced to characters that we ultimately do feel for, since this is based on the true story and real people did die from this very recently, that you can't help but feel something when you see how brutal some of these deaths are and how traumatizing it must have been to have experienced something like this. Mark Wahlberg gives a damn good performance, the best I've seen of his in a while.
What? No.
10 Cloverfield Lane.
Children behave. That's what they say when...
I didn't know what to expect from this going in. The first trailer had me at the palm of their hands, and when I went to go see it, it mostly delivered. It's a dark, tense movie that has you suspicious of the intentions of certain integral characters. You don't really know what's actually happening or what's true and what's false. I love movies that play with your mind like that. It really gets you invested in the story, at least until they ruin the ending by completely turning what was a smart, tense film into CGI schlockfest that feels out of left field and ruins the tone of the film. But the rest of the film before that is still really good, so I suggest watching it. Next is Zootopia. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun, buddy cop movie that is perfect for families and furries. If you're a furry, I very highly recommend this movie if you haven't already seen it, which I'm sure you have. It has some interesting and mature themes I didn't expect to see, and a lot of funny, cute bits and creative ideas.
Is that Mr. Big? Stop talking, stop talking.
Captain America Civil War is a really entertaining superhero film. The conflict and the back and forth between the characters were really interesting and easy to invest into. The fight choreography was good, although I didn't like how some of the action sequences were directed. It's like they forgot how to shoot in clear white shots. Please, keep one steady shot so I know what's happening. There you go. Deadpool. Really fun movie. It moved at such a fast pace. A lot of the jokes landed for me. The action was great and well directed. The story was simple, engaging, and structured in an interesting way. And I love the fact that it paved the way for movies like Logan to come out. Without it, we wouldn't have studios considering the fact maybe not everything needs to be family friendly.
I am very turned on right now.
The Lobster is the first American film by Greek director Yorgos Lanthimos, I think that's how you pronounce it, sorry if I'm butchering that takes place in a dystopian world where it's illegal to, well, it's better if you watch the film on your own. All I'll say is that the movie is absolutely ridiculous and hilarious. And what makes it even funnier is how straightly played the actors' performances are when they say or do these strange things. It's very dry humor. It does a great job at building the world it's set in. At first you're confused as to what's happening, but it fills you in pretty quickly. But not in an obvious way. You just figure things out on your own. It's very strange, well directed, well written, and it's tonally consistent. Hacksaw Ridge is a cheesy, brutal, well directed war movie. It's not breaking any new ground. Mel Gibson does what he does best and directs the hell out of the battle sequences. It's so well executed. I liked Vince Vaughn in this, although it was hard to shake the fact that Vince Vaughn is in this. I just kept waiting for him to tell Andrew Garfield how money he can be.
Mike, I'm telling you, you're money. You're so fucking money.
Doesn't really hold up as much with repeat viewings though. Now, onto my list. At my number 10 spot, I have Hell or High Water. Chris Pine was absolutely amazing. This is the best performance of his I've ever seen. Bob Foster equally, if not better than Pine. Their chemistry felt really natural and convincing, like they actually had history with each other. Jeff Bridges is always fantastic.
Come on, Roy. Oh, you come on.
Maybe not always, but he was here. It's a great modern western slash heist slash cat and mouse film. It gets a bit slow here and there, but it quickly picks up when it starts to drag a bit. At my number 9, it's Arrival. Denis Villeneuve is back to direct this brilliant, slow burn, smart, meaningful sci-fi drama that will leave you in awe. A film ultimately about communication and humanity and how our future correlates with our past. The effects were top notch, which is surprising considering the budget. I liked how grand everything felt, and the innovative, disorienting ships were really neat to watch and experience. Amy Adams gives her second best performance this year, behind Batman vs Superman. No. At my number 8 spot, it is Moonlight. Barry Jenkins makes a beautiful, touching, personal film about a young man coming to terms with his sexuality. We see his life progress by 3 stages. One when he's a kid, one when he's a teenager, and another when he's an adult. The performances all 3 actors give are all unique and achieves what that chapter they're in ultimately wants to get across from the protagonist to the audience. They're very nuanced performances that flow together very well. It's really fluid and seamless. As much as I love 2015's Love and Mercy, Paul Dano to John Cusack wasn't seamless at all. At number 7 is a film written and directed by Shane Black, The Nice Guys. It is one of those rare mid-level budget buddy cop crime films that just don't get made anymore. The dialogue was really engaging to listen to. It's one of the funniest movies I've seen all year. The dynamic between Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe was beautiful and worked perfectly. The girl who plays the daughter was surprisingly not annoying. She didn't detract from the movie at all. If anything, she improved it. Number 6, we have Green Room, a really disturbing, gross, gory, fast-paced thriller that will leave you feeling dirty. Patrick Stewart is menacing as hell in this. He always keeps this really calm composure that gives off the impression that he's very calculating and methodical. It's just really weird seeing someone so calm be responsible for all this horrendous shit we see on screen. There's a sense of realism present that isn't in a lot of films. I don't know, maybe it's because the characters felt like actual people and not actors in the film reciting lines they read off of a screenplay. I was very satisfied with how everything is resolved. The last scene and line of the movie was perfect. Number 5 is La La Land. Damien Chazelle brings us his modern day Singing in the Rain. It's really hard to make a musical good in my opinion. I notice I have a hard time investing in the story since those types of films constantly stop and nothing that happens furthers the plot. But I found myself really enjoying this film for what it is, which is a love letter to LA and a love letter to the types of movies that were rampant in the golden age of Hollywood. Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone had great chemistry, the music was wonderful, something I'd actually buy. The choreography for the musical numbers was really well directed and well shot. It's such a beautiful looking movie as well. The cinematography was gorgeous, and I liked where these characters end up by the end of the film, even though it is bittersweet. Number 4 is Manchester by the Sea. All around great performances from everyone. This is a film I had no idea what was about, but once I started watching it, it sunk its claws into me almost immediately. The big thing that happens in this movie is so heart-wrenching and depressing. This isn't a movie I recommend to someone who is on suicide watch, because this might push them over the edge. It's well written, well paced, and is tonally consistent, which is surprising because this movie is also very funny, but the humor never feels forced or out of place. It all blends in with the drama beautifully. Casey Affleck is great, but Michelle Williams completely steals a scene from him and acts circles around him. Number 3 is Nocturnal Animals. What an anxiety-inducing, clever revenge film. The first time I saw this, I felt queasy once the shit started happening on that road. This movie would have failed if the acting was shit, but it was great. Aaron Taylor Johnson, aka Kick-Ass, aka Russian Quicksilver, was phenomenal. I didn't even realize it was him until I saw him in the broad daylight for the first time. I had been wondering where he was since I saw his name in the opening credits. Come to find, I'd already watched 20 minutes of this guy in character, not realizing it was him. I was fully immersed in the scenario even though it was fake within the context of the film. You still somehow give a shit. The concept was brilliant. The book within the movie representing how Edward felt through their ugly breakup was so well executed. Nearly everything about this film was great. I thought Michael Shannon might have nabbed the award at the Oscars since you're more likely to win the statue if it looks like he had AIDS. It's usually how it works. I very much loved how the film looked. There were so many beautiful, well-placed shots like this. This was only Tom Ford's second film, and I think he needs to ditch his other line of business and start doing this full time because he's damn good at it. Number 2 is Sing Streets, a really underrated film that not a lot of people were talking about. It barely got any awards buzz, but I found it to be such a delightful, feel-good film with a top-notch soundtrack, well-cast characters that don't feel like actors at all. They have this really genuine, quirky feel to them. Not Juno quirky, but quirky. There are really interesting aspects and themes of the film that deals with things such as figuring out who you are, what you want to be. This desire to make something of your life is present all throughout, and that it's important to take risks, experiment, and to innovate. All things that are universal and relatable. I felt like pumping my fist into the air walking out of the theater. And this is a good juxtaposition for the next and last film on the list. My favorite film of 2016 is... Is it just me, or was I the only one who thought something else was gonna happen when the head priest told Cosmo to go into the bathroom to wipe his makeup off? Couldn't have just been me that thought he was gonna get molested, right? The Witch!
What went we out into this wilderness to find?
Hands down, one of the best horror movies in the past, I don't know how many years. Better than The Conjuring, better than The Babadook, better than It Follows, better than so many of these horror movies that have come out, some of which I love. There's such a strong sense of realism and dread that's present throughout the entire film. You never feel at ease. It seems as if danger is surrounding this family at all times, especially after the first 5 minutes. The dread translates so well through the screen. The sound design was great. It knew how long certain shots needed to stay silent, when music should be playing, how loud or how subtle it has to be. The kid actors were amazing. Always impressed by good kid actors since they're very hard to find. Very rare that it ever happens. This kind of reminded me of The Shining a bit. There's a family that's being slowly torn apart through a malevolent force that is messing with their mental health. And you're just there for the whole ride, seeing it all deteriorate into a haunting, disturbing, violent series of events. I felt dirty watching this movie. I had concerns for my own well-being. Maybe it's because I was raised in a Catholic household and just can't help the fact that horror films with strong religious undertones just creep the fuck out of me. Black Phillip is already a staple in horror movie villains or icons, whatever you want to call it. Some say the film is too slow, which I wholeheartedly disagree. I never once felt the need to check my phone, see how much longer is left. I was invested from beginning to end. It's just a miserable, haunting experience. Watch this before you do Sing Street. You'll get both ends of the emotional spectrum within a matter of 4 hours. The accents sounded incredibly convincing and real. It sounded so real that I had to watch it with subtitles since I had no idea what they were saying half the time. And it's hard to believe this is Robert Eggers' debut film. Right out of the gate, he gives us a horror classic. So that's my list. Those are my favorite movies of 2016. My 2017 list will be out next year probably, since I try and watch every film that comes out before I make a top 10 list. But if you want to see where it's at right now, here it is. Take a gander. Alright, that's it for me. Have a good one, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll see you later. Bye.